Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer.com. Today on our 2019 Subaru WRX, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Curt vehicle wiring harness with 4-pole flat connector. Now what separates this wiring from some of the others is that it's going to have a module box. And what that module box is going to do is protect our factory wiring if something happens to go wrong with our trailer wiring. This is going to give you all your necessary lighting functions for your trailer. It's going to give you that peace of mind knowing you're safe and legal, and knowing other motorists can see you at nighttime or when making different maneuvers. What I like about this kit is that they don't short you on your 4-pole wiring. It's going to give you plenty of length to come all the way down and reach your trailer. You can even use the dust cap to keep it stored on your trailer when you're not using it, if you choose to keep it outside. Now most of our customers, when they're not using this, are going to want to keep it inside. That way it'll stay out of the weather and elements. And it's really easy to do that. Just pick it up, ball it up, and set it off to the side. Now one thing I do want to point out, when we do run this outside, it's going to be just fine to run it along our seal and our threshold. However, you do want to avoid coming close to your latch. That way we don't cause any damage. Now many of our customers, when it comes to trailer wiring in general, have questions about how to run the power wire. Well, we're going to show you that during the install video. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and do it together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be working in our trunk. So we're going to go ahead and open up our trunk lid. Now we need to remove our floor covering and set it off to the side. As well as all of our styrofoam material. Now we need to remove our scuff panel right here. To do that, there's going to be 3 fasteners just like this. So we're going to take a flathead screwdriver and kind of lightly work the head of it out, and we can push the remaining one out. With all 3 of our fasteners out, we can then work our scuff panel off. So we're going to kind of pull out on the bottom and pull up, and it'll free those alignment tabs, which look like this. Now we're going to remove a few fasteners on the side. That way we can bend our felt panel back. Now they're going to be pretty much identical to the ones that we removed from our scuff panel. We'll take our flathead and just work that fastener out. Once you have those removed, we can then take our panel, just push it out of the way like that. Now the passenger side is going to be set up the same way, so we'll repeat that process on that side. Now we can disconnect our electrical connector that goes into our tail light. To do that, we'll push down on this center tab simultaneously while pulling back. Now we can take our new harness, and we're going to work with the end that has the yellow, red, and brown wire and plug that into the driver's side tail light. So we're going to take the female end of our new harness connector and plug that into the factory connection. And we'll take the other end and plug that into our tail light. Now we can connect our ground wire, which will be this white wire with the pre-attached ring terminal. Now instead of drilling into the body, what I'm going to do is actually just remove this nut and ground it that way. So I use an 8mm to do that. Slide our ring terminal over it and tighten that nut back down. Now we can take our green wire with the 2 connector ends and run it over to our passenger side. Now we're going to plug this into our passenger side taillight assembly, but first we have to disconnect it. Once again, we'll push down on that center tab and pull back. And back here on the driver's side, what we can do now is connect our length of black power wire to the black power wire coming out of our box. So to do that, we'll take one end of our long wire and strip some of the insulation back. Then we'll put on one of the included butt connectors. Just slide that over the wire and crimp it down. We'll connect the other end to the black power wire coming out of our box. Now we're going to need to find a spot to drop our power wire down on the bottom side of the car. That way we can run it up front into the engine compartment. Well, I found a factory rubber grommet underneath our spare tire. So we're going to have to pull this out. So what we do is just lift out the factory tools and unscrew our wing nut. And now we can lift our spare tire out and just set it off to the side. And with the spare tire removed, we can now see our two grommets. And what I'm going to do is the one on the driver's side, I'm going to drill a small hole in it. That way we can push our wire through. What I actually like to do is put a small shot of lubricant on it just to help push that wire through there. Take the end, feed the remainder of that wire to the underside of the car. I pretty much ran the whole entire length of that wire down to the underside of the car. However, I did give us a couple foot here just to have some room to work with. Now what I like to do is take some electrical tape and cover up that connection point just for a little extra protection. So now what we can do is mount our box. Now you want to find a clean flat surface to do this, and I chose this area right here. What I went ahead and did was clean this area and the back of our box with some rubbing alcohol. And then we'll take our included two-sided sticky tape, peel back one of the sides, and stick it to our box. Remove the other side of the backing paper and line it up and firmly push down to make sure it's seated. I went ahead and secured our wiring all the way down using some of the included zip ties, and I actually just dropped my black power wire down right here. So now that we know we have enough length and that our spare tire can sit on it without pulling it too hard, I'm going to seal up this hole using some RTV silicone. And just for a little extra peace of mind, I used some packing tape and taped our wire down to the floor. So now I went ahead and ran our power wire up to the engine compartment. I'll show you how I did that. I came out through our grommet here in the trunk, ran it along and up and over our hitch, and I just secured it using some zip ties along the way. Up through here, above our subframe. Now it's very important that you avoid any moving or excessively hot parts while you're doing this. And up through here, and it drops down here to the right side of our fuel tank. And I pushed it forward along this panel and into this panel. Now I did lower this panel a little bit by just removing a couple screws and 10mm bolts. I pulled it down and ran our wire along it. Came out along our frame, went through this support and up and over our cross member, and now I can pull it into the engine bay. So what I did before I actually started running the wire, I used a piece of nylon tubing and opened the hood and dropped this down. That way, whenever we get back up top, I can just pull that and it'll pull my wire all the way up. Now if you don't have any nylon tubing, you can use a coat hanger or something like that. So now under the engine compartment, I can pull up our wire, and I'll route it over to the battery and show you how I did that. So here's how I routed our power cable. I came up along the firewall and ran it along that factory wiring behind our intercooler, securing it with some zip ties. Along through here And the end of the wire ended up right here next to our positive battery terminal. So now what we're going to do is prepare our fuse holder to connect it to our wire and our battery. So we'll peel off the ends of the insulation. And on one side, we're going to put on a butt connector. On the other side, we're going to put on a ring terminal. Now we can pull our positive battery cover off, just lift up on it, and we can kind of eyeball how much length we're going to need. So we'll run it probably something along these lines. So we'll take our power wire, about right there, cut it. We can strip back some of that insulation. And connect our fuse holder to it. And I like to wrap up our connection with some electrical tape just for that extra protection. Now once we have that done, we can hook up our ring terminal to the battery. However, I do want to point out, you want to make sure that you do not have your fuse in the fuse holder. So since we verified our fuse is not in, we can use a 12mm socket to loosen up this nut on the positive battery terminal. I'll take that off and slide a ring terminal over it and run it back down. Once that is nice and tight, we can take our included fuse and put that into the holder. Use our dust cap to help protect it. Then any extra wiring we have, we can just secure it using some zip ties. Once all that's done, it's a good idea to reinstall your terminal cover. Now before we put everything back together in the trunk, we're going to test everything to make sure it works. Try our left turn, our right turn, our brake lights, and our headlights. Now that we verified everything is properly working, we can go ahead and put our trunk area back together in the opposite fashion that we removed it. And that'll do it for our look at and installation of the Curt vehicle wiring harness on our 2019 Subaru WRX.